Westfield. End of September 1995. I'm 12. For the first time, I'm about to get a console on launch day. I'm excited. For Christmas. Because I don't actually know I'm going to get this spanking new console on launch day. Or near enough launch day. See, my mum bought my brother and I a PlayStation. I think from Debenhams, though don't quote me on that. A quick check says the video game shop Silica had become part of Debenhams by this point in time, so it makes sense. Mum got us a PS1 as a Christmas gift though. Thing was, Mummy Dearest worked away from home a lot, and we'd often go to her house when she wasn't around. One time we turned up and there it was in the middle of the living room floor. A PS1, 2 pads, 2 games. It hadn't been wrapped, it wasn't even out of the carrier bag. We liberated it from its thin, plasticky confines, plugged it into the TV, and spent pretty much the entire day on those 2 games. Battle Arena Toshinden and Ridge Racer. Let's indulge in some warm nostalgia and talk about each, eh? Yeah. Toshinden was one I knew nothing about, beyond the fact that it looked like the future. It was a fighting game and was actually among the first 3D arcade-style fighters available in the home. Nowhere near the first, but certainly an early player. It was one of the first 3D fighters on console that wasn't ported from an original arcade release. It was, would you believe it, one of the PlayStation's launch games, at least in the US and Europe. In the game proper, it was a weapons-based fighter, and it featured the usual mix of weirdos in its 8 characters, plus 1 or 2 secret ones. It mixed what would become the norm for 3D fighters, navigating the 3D space around an arena, ring outs, etc., with more 2D style throwbacks like projectile attacks. And right now, today, in 2022, Battle Arena Toshinden is clunky as hell by crikey just look at it. So it is that by staring at it for a while, you might be surprised to hear that Toshinden was actually well received on release. Like, really well received. 88% in Games Master magazine, an 8 out of 10 in Edge. Some high scores in irrelevant American magazines. EGM awarded Toshinden the award of Best Fighting Game in its awards awarded to 1995 releases in its 1996 Buyer's Guide in the awards section. That is a telling example of the time, the technology, the leap we were seeing from 16 to 32-bit. It wasn't slightly better shadows, an imperceptible leap from 960p to 1080p or ray tracing. It was a genuinely exciting and impressive jump from the SNES and Mega Drive to PlayStation and Saturn. And as such, some folks did get a wee bit carried away with it all. Not the experts at Maximum magazine though, who of course smacked Toshinden with the 3 out of 5 stars it deserved and got back to doing 30 or something page features on Tekken 2. Wonder who it was in charge of Maximum back then. What do you mean it was the guy who runs Mortal Enemy of Bransfield at Digital Foundry? Oh, for fuck. Anyway, that broader enthusiasm for Toshinden did wear off pretty quickly on the PlayStation side after titles like Namco's Tekken and Soul Blade hit, along with dozens of other 3D fighters I absolutely cannot think of, nor would remember even with a gun to my head. There were a metric ton load of 3D fighting games in this generation. I actually started putting together a video on them some time ago, but was put off by 2 things. 1, there were so bloody many of them, and B, Matt McMuscles has been doing a series on the same sort of thing for a while anyway, so let's leave him to it, eh? When the definitely a Sony PlayStation exclusive Toshinden came out on the Sega Saturn a year later, it's very right to point out that it didn't get as easy a ride with critics there. They were folks who already had the Virtua Fighter series as a reference point for quality after all. Still, Toshinden had some firsts. Maybe for gaming as a whole, definitely for me personally. It was the first 3D fighting game with 3D dodging in it. Dark Edge was 2D in a 3D world, I'm still right. Toshinden was the first 3D fighting game that was weapon-based. It was the first fighting game of any kind I played on PlayStation, in case that wasn't patently obvious from the title of the video. And while its reputation was hugely overblown in those first few months of its lifespan, and the game itself is a bit shit, Toshinden is by no means an absolute piece of garbage. It can still be quite fun, it was suitably ambitious for 1995, and it genuinely did help kick off an exciting new generation of gaming in the home. Not many games can claim that sort of thing. All that said, I only played it as much as I did in 1995 because it was one of 2 games I got with my PlayStation. Had I more of a say in the matter, I would have just ignored Toshinden and waited for Tekken. Even at the idiotic tiny age of 12, I remember not being impressed by the game beyond its visuals, and beyond my brother and I laughing endlessly at Foe's daft noises he made when doing special moves. It was one of my firsts on the system, but if it were the only game I had in those early days, I'd have been seriously disappointed in this new generation. Fortunately,
Ridge Racer!
It's hard to overemphasize how important it was to us kids in the 90s that a game first released in coin-op form arrived at the home arcade perfect. Most of the time they didn't. Chopped up, cut back, diluted experiences that did a poor job of emulating the arcade experience in the home. Some were good, sure. Ridge Racer was something special, though. In the real world, if you put the arcade and home versions side by side, it'd be clear for all to see that the big coin-munching unit was the superior version, at least technologically. But it was close, so incredibly close. Ridge Racer was arcade perfect, and it was a statement of intent from day one on the PlayStation. It's not like the game itself was particularly complex or anything. A racing game with arcadey handling and rather daft drifting around corners, taking place along one course with multiple variations, forwards, backwards, each direction mirrored, with and without a diversion. 4 cars, plus 8 if you spent way too much time trying to nail the opening Galaxian loading screen, a Black Devil car I forgot to record while playing, time trials, announcers, all the trimmings. Ridge Racer was the birth of a franchise that lasted years and hit some real highs following this original game, though we'll overlook the massive fall in quality it had before it died a decade ago. Now, arguably, Wipeout was the better game for PS1 at the console's launch. A more fleshed out experience with far more variety and much more longevity for extended play in the home. But Ridge Racer was the PS1's killer app. Arcades still mattered. The Arcade Perfect port was a big deal. Even with its lack of depth, its replayability measured in nanoseconds, and the fact you didn't play it in a full-sized Mazda in the home, Ridge Racer was the PlayStation game at the end of September in 1995. And for some time to come it remained one of the games for Sony's machine. And, of course, this was all reflected in that all-important contemporary critical feedback, with Ridge Racer bagging high scores from plenty of publications, 96% in Computer and Video Games, 9 out of 10 in the official PlayStation magazine, unsurprisingly, 93% in my beloved Play magazine, not the US version and not the modern incarnation of it, the good one that I worked on back in 2009. There were some lower scores, but generally speaking, Ridge Racer nailed it, was the game everyone was talking about with the PlayStation, and just, well, yeah, nailed it. Hang on a sec. I remember seeing this ad 300 million years ago and never actually playing the game it's on about, Cyber Sled. I'm in the future now, so can get older games. Time to fix one of history's great injustices. Huh. Okay then. Like Virtual On in a way. Neat. Anyway, back to racing ridges. So I played Ridge Racer here to capture some footage and refresh my memory for writing the words in this script. Exactly the same as Toshinden, and exactly the same as I do with the vast majority of my videos. I wasn't moved by how much has clearly aged. It's from the mid-90s, it's a first wave PS1 game, the music absolutely places it in time with a Japanese take on Eurodance, rave, house type stuff. The limited options and speed at which you can technically complete the thing wasn't lost on me. I could see the seams, is what I'm saying. The rose-tinted specs had a fair few cracks in them. Ridge Racer is no Gran Turismo. It's no Ridge Racer Type 4. It's no Colin McRae Rally. But by crikey, if I didn't end up just sitting and playing through the whole thing, at times perched right on the edge of the sofa as I made it around corners with millimeters to spare, breaking lap records and battling with the ever-increasing challenge of, well, rather unfair AI cars. I played for hours. Ridge Racer is such good fun, even today in 2022. Replaying the two games I got with my PlayStation on day one was a mixed bag then. Toshinden I could safely and hilariously rename Toss Inden, whereas the other game I wholly, unashamedly bought into the joy. The joy that was
Ridge Racer!
Thanks for indulging me, and special thanks to my patrons listed here. You can join them through the link below. I'm off to spin my yellow Nissan Juke 360 degrees as I take a hairpin bend on a cliffside. It's what Ridge Racer would have wanted. Bye!